Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. The mindset that we bring to any situation plays a key part in overcoming challenges and really enjoying our unique paths in life. On Thoughtful Thursdays, I like to explore emotional topics that are relevant to CRNAs and other providers. I think of this as my therapy, and I hope you learn some tips and tricks that you can use along your own journey. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today, and now on with the show. Welcome to Thoughtful Thursdays on the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and as always, I like to start the shows off with a quote that gets me thinking. George Bernard Shaw once said, "Imitation is not just the sincerest form of flattery, it's the sincerest form of learning." Now, we all know that imitation is a crucial aspect of skill development. It allows us to learn new things more quickly and efficiently by watching those people around us. Anyone with more than one child knows this. I mean, in my own experience, each successive child learns by watching their older siblings, picking up certain traits and habits more quickly in the process. From gross motor skills to speech to interactive play, children see and imitate the behaviors of parents, caregivers, siblings, and peers around them. And then your kids start to say stuff back to you that you have said to them. Do what I say, not what I do, right? And that's not exactly how imitation works, of course, because kids are not just carbon copies of their parents, no matter how much they do end up picking up from us. Now, when learning a new skill, we often look to experts for guidance. The thought is, if I do what they do, I'll get where they are. Imitation and repetition took me a long way in different areas of my life. I played baseball from the age of 5 to 18, and I tried to imitate my dad. When learning to become a nurse, I copied what other nurses did until I was better at it. Fake it till you make it is a refrain we've all heard. And that's kind of what imitation is, right? In certain realms, this is more acceptable than other places. I mean, it's great to imitate the skills of excellent providers in healthcare, but it's another to imitate artists or musicians where the word itself brings to mind other words such as forgery, copy, fake, or reproduction. The stigma in the artistic world is that mastery through imitation leads to a suppression of originality and authenticity. Is there any truth to this notion? Well, the Swiss National Science Foundation partnered with the Conservatorio della Svizzera Italiana to test this idea. They performed a preliminary study in the early 2000s with advanced study violinists, splitting them into experimental and control groups. Now, all of them were asked to prepare and perform the Adagio from Bach's Sonata for solo violin in G minor. Now, that was performance number 1. Those in the experimental group were then asked to study a target recording of the piece by Joshua Heifetz and to perform a perceptually indistinguishable copy of the recording. That was performance number 2. This was followed by interviews and a final non-imitated performance approximately 1 month later, which was then performance number 3. The results revealed that the violinists were able to imitate expressive features of the target recording to a high degree, and that the imitation process directly influenced their conceptions of how the piece could be interpreted, as observed in their final non-imitated performances. However, the extent of influence was highly individual specific, with some violinists producing final performances that were different from both the original performance and their imitations of the Heifetz performance. These findings suggest that the imitation process did not suppress individuality and novel interpretive insights. Rather, it actually compelled the violinists to consider their interpretive approaches carefully and to exercise their listening, evaluation, and decision-making skills. This makes sense, but we're only talking about a group of 5 violinists here. Can we really draw wide comparisons to society at large from this type of a study? Well, we've all experienced something switching in our brains in our academic careers. Once we've learned the skills, the learner becomes the master. Not only can we now do what we set out to do, but we are confident enough to teach others as well. And we've done our best to imitate others who we deem experienced or successful, but no one can do that perfectly, and we develop our own style. Let's take it a step further then. Could we, through imitation, actually become even more innovative? This question led me to the Japanese concept of Shuhari. There is a perception in popular media in Asia that there's a certain stubbornness about learning a skill. Traditions that have been carried on for hundreds of years are followed to the letter with strict master-disciple relationships. However, no 2 generations have actually lived the same life, and skills have had to change over the years. Shuhari is often tied to Japanese martial arts history, where historically these changes were forced to occur. Martial arts used in war were adopted and changed to martial arts for self-enlightenment. Shuhari consists of 3 parts. Shu, which means protect or obey. This refers to that traditional wisdom where you learn fundamentals, techniques, heuristics, and proverbs. Ha, which means detach or digress. This is the breaking with tradition and a detachment from the illusions of self. And then Ri, which means leave or separate. This is transcendence, where there are no techniques or proverbs, all moves are natural, becoming one with spirit along without clinging to forms, transcending the physical, if you will. Okay, now a great example of this is Bruce Lee. He was schooled in the Wing Chun style of Kung Fu, but he ended up breaking with tradition and developing his own style called Jeet Kune Do, or Jeet Kune Do. I'm not sure how that's pronounced exactly. But, however, to even get to that point, Bruce Lee still had to gain mastery in his original martial art first. A parallel in healthcare is pretty easy to imagine. If a 20-year-old comes up to you off the street and says they have a spinal surgery technique that's revolutionary and better than what traditional doctors offer, would you even listen to them? Well, how about if you were approached instead with the same idea by a neurosurgeon with 20 plus years of experience? See the difference? Breaking with tradition is an exciting and frightening path, but you often rely on the skills and techniques that you've learned in the past through imitation and mastery. You must know what currently exists before actually breaking away. I started my own business through imitation. I had a model for what I wanted to achieve, and I had someone to imitate. Then, once I became better at what I was doing, I started to change my business to reflect my own personality and drives. The business is very different from what I first imagined, but it's my own creation, and I can truly appreciate that. And that's what I love about so many of the innovators that I interview on the show. They have learned and mastered their primary craft, and they're now exploring innovations and becoming masters of their own domain. Now, if you're looking for others to model yourself after, there are plenty of other healthcare providers out there who are blazing their own paths. Don't be afraid to imitate enough to become masterful. In fact, it might be the only way you can truly begin to innovate. Now, that's what I've got for you today. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review. I'd love to hear, what you thought of the show today. If you're interested in passive income opportunities with tax-advantaged real estate, visit my website at www.oncallinvestments.com or reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Until next time, be safe. Take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.